Welcome, everybody, to the American Space Museum. I'm Mark Marquette, and so glad you're with us to stay curious. Today we have with us KSC Fireman Lee Starrick. Hello, Lee.
Hello.
Of course, Lee's more than just a fireman. He was on the Astronaut Rescue Crew for many years out there at Kennedy Space Center. He's wrote a little book here about that we have a few copies here at our museum about the first 30 years with a gentleman named Bill Killer there, but got some cool pictures of his career out there. But really importantly, Lee's been a wonderful contributor to our museum and a volunteer. In fact, Lee was over our whole collections in the early days. So
Yeah.
how are you? Good to see you. We've been
Good.
trying to get you on Stay Curious for years. And
Yeah.
so glad
I'm
that
evasive. I'm a very evasive guy.
well, you had a few medical issues there.
Yeah,
You're
yeah.
looking good, and
Thank
so
you,
glad
thank
that
you.
you're
Yeah.
back hanging out at the museum.
Yeah.
Lee, you were one of the first people I met here. I was wet behind the ears 5 years ago, and look at us now.
Yeah.
In fact, they put me in a rubber room, Lee.
There you go.
Look,
Inside, yeah.
I'm in a rubber room.
You're
For those
inside.
of you who don't know.
That is actually not called the rubber room.
Okay,
That is what they call the hard room.
okay,
The rubber room is what you came out when you slid down the tube,
all right.
and you ended up in what they call the rubber room. The reason they called it the rubber room is the slide that slowed you down was lined with rubber.
And we're talking about what for our
This
Stay
is
Curious?
during Apollo.
This is a
we had
rescue
a
system.
We had a rescue system that was set up under the pad for Apollo. The design of it was we would go down there to get away from the Saturn V if it was on the verge of exploding.
And we're going to see pictures all about that
Yeah,
here as we
and
do
if
our
we went
program
inside
here.
there, the idea was to be able to stay in there for 3 to 5 days. There would be food and water for the rescue team, the closeout crew, and the astronauts to be able to live in that area that you see right there. We had food and water in there for 3 to 5 days while they tried to dig us out.
Try to dig you out
Yeah,
from whatever
Yeah, but it was
nuclear
under the
explosion
pad.
happened with a Saturn V.
It's under the pad. It's still there. All of that stuff that you see is still there.
Uh-huh.
The room itself was mounted on springs from rail cars, so they would absorb a certain amount of shock if we did have an explosion.
Well,
But,
Marty Winkle's been inside of it. He's my cameraman and co-producer
Yeah.
for our Stay Curious program there. Marty, you got to slide down it, you said?
Yeah.
What was
Yeah.
that experience like?
About 60 years ago.
Oh, I'm talking. Oh, don't 60
I tell you
years
what,
That's how you call it. Was fun.
the first time I slid the tube, what they call the tube, you went out of the launch umbilical tower on the tube. The problem was it didn't have enough angle. You had a very flat tube, and I was in coveralls, and I literally had to push myself
Uh-huh.
because you wouldn't slide. Now, the tube was lined with Teflon, which supposedly was slippery,
Yeah.
but back then, with the coveralls on, you didn't slide. Now, the second time that I went down it, I had my rescue suit on, my astronaut rescue suit, which was a Nomex aluminum, and I slid a little better. The third time I went down, there was actually 3 of us. I was holding a rope. We put an astronaut behind me, and a third rescue guy got behind me, and they tapped me on the helmet. I let go of the rope, and I hit the wall. That's
Oh.
how fast we went down because it was wet. They had
Oh,
water
my God.
spraying.
Ah, what
Yeah.
astronaut was he, remember?
Trying to think. One of the Apollo 16 guys, probably. I don't remember which
Well,
one
that'd
it
been
was.
John Young and Charlie Duke were
Charlie
launched
Duke.
Saturday 50 years ago to the moon. And
Yeah.
but we're going to talk about that here. You see already, we're going to have a fascinating talk with this gentleman, Lee Starrick. He's got a lot of great stories. I used to cover City Hall, Lee, and as a reporter, and I know one fact about cities. The one person that knows everything about what's going on and can shut down anything, the fire marshal.
Yeah.
So I'm sure you guys had some interesting authority out there at the Cape.
Yeah.
But let's tell us first a little about where'd you grow up? How'd you get down here into
My
this career?
parents moved to Titusville when I was 4 years old. Tomorrow's my anniversary. I've been here 76 years.
Wow. And where was that from?
From
Pennsylvania?
Detroit.
Oh, Detroit.
Yeah, my
Detroit.
dad worked for Hudson Car Company in Detroit.
Hudson Car Company. There's
Yeah.
an old good-looking car.
Yeah, but the neighbors behind us in Detroit had come down the year before and came back up and told my dad there was all kind of opportunities coming off down here, businesses. You could start any kind of business you wanted to. So
Late
we,
50s, right?
yeah. No, well, this would have been in 1946, late 40s.
Okay.
Yeah, we came in 46.
All
They
right.
came in 45, and then we came in 46. But my dad started a land clearing business. He bought a bulldozer, and he started clearing property down
That's
at
pretty smart.
Cocoa Beach is
Uh-huh.
where he started. He cleared the first property for the first motel on Cocoa Beach.
Absolutely
Yeah,
cool.
yeah.
Wow.
And they
how's
had a
that?
big subdivision down there. There was a realtor down there called Gus Edwards. He cleared property for him in a little place called Snug Harbor. They were building houses called Snug Harbor,
Hmm.
and my dad cleared the property for that.
Well, Lee, I found this little story that was written about you, and quoting it, it says this: Lee Starrick remembers as a boy playing in his Titusville backyard with a neighbor when they noticed something strange and thought, what the heck was that? And you looked towards Cape Canaveral in the morning of July 24th, 1950. You saw a light rising in the sky and occasional wisp of a contrail. Eventually, you heard a light rumble. And tell everybody what that was.
Bumper 8, which was the first launch at
The
the
very
Cape.
first launch
Very
at the
first
Cape.
launch,
You
yeah.
saw as a kid.
Captured V2 that was brought over, and that's what they launched as the first one. We had no idea what it was because back then everything was a secret. Nobody talked about what they did over there. When the people that worked on the Cape, they didn't talk about what they did because it was a secret. But we saw that thing go up and heard just a little bit of rumble, not a lot because it was so small. But like you say, we saw a little bit of contrail. We thought we were being invaded. We thought the aliens were coming or something.
Yeah,
We
and
weren't-
that was at 9:28 in the morning. Bumper 8, a V2 rocket, stood 6 stories tall, and the first rocket launched at Kennedy, and you saw it.
Yeah.
And that's
Cape
really neat.
Canaveral, yeah, first
Later
one.
on, you become a astronaut rescue man, chief
Yeah.
crew of the shuttle pad rescue. You were a lieutenant at the Kennedy Space Center Fire Department, and like I said, he's going to tell us about some of those stories. I know somebody is listening to these stories. Bill Calloway says hi to you. Know Bill?
Name
Remember Bill? And I'm sure Andrew Olivia's watching. Hi, Andrew. Margot Watson. Hello, Margot. And Tom Celentano. Tom, glad that you're watching Stay Curious today on this special program for me because, like I said, Lee's one of the old timers that hangs out with some of the guys show up here usually on Thursdays, and we're talking about Jack Martin and
Yeah.
Murphy Wardman, both 90 years old.
Yeah.
You're nipping at their heels a little bit
I
there, my
just turned
friend.
80 last month.
Did you?
Yeah.
Well, good
yeah,
for you there.
Yeah.
Well, let's look at a few little. We're thank our Hyatt Place for sponsoring Stay Curious here at the Hyatt Place Studios inside the American Space Museum in downtown Titusville, where we take seriously that we are preserving the birth of the American space age right here where it all happened, and I call it the delivery room of America's space age, Brevard County, Lee. And we're exactly 11 miles away from Pad 39B where that Artemis SLS rocket is sticking there. Have you gone out and seen it?
I have not been out to see it since they rolled it out. They restricted the rollout pretty bad. So,
Well, you can go by Play Linda, you
Yeah,
know, and
yeah.
or
I'm going
get
out there.
closer.
They're supposedly doing an open house, but I don't know if they. Right now, they've got it set up for the 23rd, and they've got another man launch at 23rd. So I don't know what they're gonna.
Yeah, they do. Thursday
Yeah.
morning, they're supposed to launch Crew. That's the 23rd, Crew 4,
Yeah.
and there's a Starlink launch in the afternoon.
Yeah. So we're
And
gonna.
I
be
heard
busy.
this. We had Tom Engler, who is a NASA planner. Hi, Tom, and your crew there. Tom Engler was at a Chamber of Commerce luncheon yesterday. I was at Titusville, and he was explaining how Pad 49 is going to be built beyond 39A and B.
Oh, really?
And it's going to butt right up to the beach
Oh, okay.
and the road out there.
Originally, there was Pad C was going to be up there, 39C.
Okay, and they must call that 49 now.
Yeah,
kinda.
maybe they've changed the
there,
name
and-
because I've got some pictures of the sign that says "Future Home of Pad 39C."
Really?
And if you go out the road, go by A11 roadblock, there used to be red lights up there, caution light, red light, and a green light if the pad was open or clear. And they had Pad C up there already, but they never built it, so they eventually took that sign
Well,
down.
since we're talking about it, what do you think about the new rocket renaissance going on with these private companies bringing back an economy that is booming,
Yeah,
by the way,
it's
on the
growing.
Space Coast?
Yeah, it's getting like the old days. I call them the old days, but the people are moving into town. The housing constructions is going again, so it's getting ready to start booming again like years ago.
Well, we hope this, well, and it's exciting. It's an exciting time, and we're blessed at our museum. Saturday, we're doing a golden anniversary of the dawn of the space shuttle era at the Hyatt Place Hotel that we just showed you. It's free admission, and Marty and I will be bringing you the program, streaming it on our social media channels of Facebook Live, YouTube, Twitch, and Spotify. So if you're out of town, you'll be able to watch it, and we know Robert Law will be watching it from, he is in Dundee, Scotland right now, enjoying a cocktail. Wow. Ophelia, hello, Ophelia. We, the you, she's in Normandy, France. We got people all over the world watching you today.
Oh, be darned.
Yeah, we're thrilled with that. And we were very thrilled today to hire a new docent. That is astronaut Mike McCulley. And we didn't hire him, but he was here to see this young lady on a Make-A-Wish. She wanted to meet an astronaut here at the Space Museum, and Mike came down here and was happy to do that. And he started giving a tour to her family there. So thank you, Mike McCulley. And he's going to be one of our astronauts with Winston Scott tomorrow at the, or Friday at our celebration of the shuttle. Why 50 years? Because that's when the U.S. Congress okayed $5.5 billion to build the space transportation system 50 years ago. Lee, $5.5 billion sounds like a lot of money, but that's like $50 billion in today's 2020 money. Yeah. So let's start off with a little bit of that's not you, but you were like a Homer Hickam.
Exactly. October Sky. If anybody's seen the movie October Sky, we had our own October Sky here in town. We made our own rockets. That guy's name was Glenn Higgs, and his dad had a tin shop here in town. He used to make tin stuff for people, and he made our nose cones and our fins. We made the rocket motors, and we also made the black powder that we used. And we launched 22 rockets altogether.
Wow.
The last one we launched was 13.5 feet tall, 6.5 inches diameter casing. And we launched it, and it went past an airliner that was flying by.
Ooh.
And we decided to stop. We didn't want to take any chances of shooting down an airplane.
Well, you were still a kid back then, or a young man?
That would have been about 1958 or 59, somewhere along in that area.
That had to attract a lot of attention around the neighborhood when you launched. No?
Nobody knew about it.
Really?
We had a wall there on the backside. We launched from Whispering Hills, which is on the west side of Titusville. We always launched at an angle so it would go out over the river. I mean, the St. Johns River or the South Lake. We only recovered 2 of the vehicles that we launched. We put parachutes into them, and we launched them straight up, and we recovered both of them. But the rest of them, they went out in the the South Lake is where we figured.
Well, how were you doing that, and then got interested in being a fire?
1961, I had a friend of mine who was a volunteer fireman, and he talked me into joining the city of Titusville as a volunteer fireman. And I did that for a little over a year. And then the fire chief called me one day, and he said, I was working in a hardware store. I graduated from high school, and I was working in Titusville Hardware. And he called me and asked me, could I come over at lunchtime? He needed to talk to me. So I went over to the fire station, and he had one of the guys he had working for him. They had 4 paid men. He was getting ready to let one of them go, and he wanted me to take his place. And in October of '62, I started as a paid fireman with the city of Titusville.
Well, you are a large man, okay, and that's an advantage of being a fireman, I think. Heavy equipment. But he looked at you and said, "Hey, can you lift? Can you pick that up and carry it over?"
Yeah.
Am I right?
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah. But he's a gentle giant, believe me. He certainly is there. We're talking to Lee Starrick, Astronaut Rescue, and worked out there at Kennedy Space Center. How many years?
35. 35 years. Yeah.
So you've seen a couple hundred launches under your belt.
Quite a few.
Yeah. Marty Winkle's handed me here that away
Yeah.
from here. Is that
The
right?
sign
Thank you,
on
Marty.
those outside still says hardware.
Okay.
And there's a sign up there advertising paint. We used to sell Sherman-Williams
Oh,
paint.
okay. Now I
And
know
if you
why
go
that's there.
inside of there, there are photographs inside of there of the hardware store that I donated to the brewery so they could put those on
Oh,
display.
wow. Well, thank you,
But I
Marty,
worked
for
in there
bringing
for
that up.
6.5 years.
Did you really?
Yeah, when I started when I was in high school, and
That's
worked when I graduated.
good old hardware stores, man.
Yeah, I
Have
miss
you,
that
have you
hardware
seen how
store.
much they want for a bolt and a nut these
Oh,
days?
yeah,
About $1 a piece.
yeah.
I mean,
we
they're-
used to sell them. We had them in the bulk. We used to sell them one each,
Yeah,
and we had bins full of nails.
yeah.
And when I first started working in a hardware store, that was not an easy job because there was so much to learn. I mean, you had to know about paint, you had to know about pots and pans, you had to know about
Galvanized
nails,
stuff was a big deal,
galvanized
right? Back
stuff. Back then, we did fishing. We sold
really?
pocket knives. We had all kind of fishing gear, hunting
then.
supplies.
Overalls, maybe? Did you have any clothes?
No, we didn't have any clothes. We didn't do
Okay.
clothes. We didn't have anything like that. But we had plumbing. We had all kind of plumbing. The first day that I worked, a plumber came in and asked me for a can of pipe threads.
Oh, yeah.
And I went looking for a can of pipe threads, not having any idea there was no such thing.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah,
He was
he
playing
was
with you?
playing with me, and I'm looking, and then they thought it was so funny. He and my boss were standing up there laughing. And, but
Put
they're-
you on a snipe hunt right
yeah,
away.
exactly,
there,
with
huh?
a flashlight.
That's a good one, Lee.
Yeah.
Well, Lee, you have certainly been an asset to our 21 years. We've had a museum. You've been involved with this almost from day one. Here's Lee giving a tour here to a bunch of students that I have a picture of you there with. And here's another picture of you with, tell us the young ladies.
Kathy Thornton, the astronaut.
Yeah.
She flew on the shuttle. They had astronauts who were assigned to KSC that were called astronaut assist persons.
Mhm.
And their job was to coordinate when the crews came in from Houston. They would set up times and do different things. They also set up the orbiter for launches. They would go in and set all the switches and get everything set up before the crew got here. But she did that for almost a year as an astronaut assist person, and they always said, "Be careful how you say our acronym. We're
Asp.
called ASP."
ASP,
And they
ASP.
said, "You make sure you put that P
Yeah,
on
ASP,
there."
ASP, yeah. Well, she, of course, did the first STS-49, I remember. It was her first flight in the maiden flight of Endeavour,
Yeah.
and that was a Hubble mission.
Hubble repair mission.
And,
She is the girl that put in the box, the huge box, so Hubble could see.
Yeah.
She put the new lens up there, and she wrestled that thing by herself. She's not a big person,
No.
but for her to wrestle that and get it in place, it was quite amazing.
This is when she was a professor at the University of Virginia.
Yeah, that's what
and
she does now.
She finally retired, and she would bring students down here to our
Yeah,
museum.
we were giving them a
And
tour.
she's got a relationship with our museum, and
Yeah.
Karen Conklin, our executive director, and she gave us her blue overhaul, her blues
One of her
astronaut
jumpsuits,
that we
yeah.
have in the Hubble gallery on a mannequin there.
We
So,
were watching with her. She had 9 grad students there, and they were watching the video we have of a shuttle mission. And while we were standing there, I asked her, I said, "Do you miss it?" And she said, "I miss the spacewalks." She said, "I love doing that. That was so much fun."
Yeah.
She said, "Some of the other stuff I don't miss too
I
much."
remember her
but-
saying how hard the training for the spacewalks were
Oh,
in
yeah,
the buoyancy
yeah,
tires. That was
buoyancy tank.
I've
And
heard
her
her
not
talk
being a
about
big
that.
person, it
And-
was harder for
and-
her
and-
because those suits, she had a lot of trouble moving in those suits.
And she had to keep her calories up because
Yeah.
you burn so much calories,
Yeah.
she said, in that giant tank in Houston. But here's a bunch of your old early friends. A few have passed on there. But I threw this in here because, like I said, Lee Solid you were once over all the collections.
Yeah.
Everything came in and filtered through your desk that went on the collections, and you've done a great job of we still
Yeah.
have things of yours that you collected, of course, personally gave us, as well as and we're going to see a few items that Lee's given us. But you're responsible for this whole thing there. And kneeling down is Warren Lackey, and Karen is right behind Warren there, and
Yeah.
Charlie Mars is in the blue shirt, and there's your buddy Murphy Wardman's in the white shirt right there. There's Charlie, and there's Warren. Charlie, the lady is, and that's Karen. The lady is the sculptress
Yeah.
of all of this, Sandy
The
Storm.
panels.
Sandy Storm.
All the panels that went on the Apollo
Mhm.
monument, and also the bust there that you see in the foreground of Kennedy.
Yeah, she did that.
She did that,
Oh.
and believe it or not, Carolyn Kennedy called her and wanted that.
Is that
She
right?
said that was the best likeness of her dad she had ever seen. And Sandy said, "Well, I'm sorry, the mold's been destroyed. There's only one, and it's gonna stay at the Apollo display."
Imagine that.
The
Well, what do you
museum.
think about when you see this is a 20-year-old photograph
Oh, it
almost?
doesn't
and,
seem
uh,
like it's been that long ago.
but well, maybe 15.
Yeah, we put those panels on one at a time around that monument. And Warren Lackey, to me, is a genius. I mean, he came up with this whole system
He did.
of how to do these monuments, and he also built the pylons where the bricks are.
Yeah. Speak
designed all
of
of
what
that.
an accomplishment this is. This is in our Spaceview Park, just 3 blocks from our museum. This is a Eiffel Tower, a Roman Colosseum, whatever you want to call it, the Taj
Yeah.
Mahal, because there's only one like this place on Earth. There's over
Yes.
30 astronauts in bronze handprints out there,
Yeah.
and you had a big part of that.
Well, the people need to come down and see it, if nothing else, just to see the handprints. I mean, the handprints when the original astronaut retirees were tasked by the city of Titusville to build monuments, they had meetings to decide how they wanted to do it and how they could raise money to build these monuments. So they were going to all be down along the riverfront. And one of the first things that they decided to do was to go after the astronauts' handprints and have something unique. So they get the handprints and put them in bronze. So we have a collection. We have 6 of the 7 original astronauts are in hand, and they're gone now.
Because
We
Gus
don't
Grissom
have-
had passed away.
yeah, he was in the
And,
Apollo fire, but we have those that are there forever. And we have many of the Gemini. A lot of the Gemini guys
Yeah.
are gone now. They're getting up there. We're losing some of the Apollo guys,
That's right.
and we've got a lot of those. So it's amazing when you can look at the handprints of some.
It's a beautiful
a
homage,
lot
and you
of-
might learn something. When I looked at Deke Slayton's handprints at the
Yes.
Mercury Monument,
Yes,
tell,
Deke Slayton should not have been an astronaut.
tell him why, Lee.
He has no ring finger.
On his
would
left hand,
have
his ring fingers cut.
that would have disqualified him. He also was too tall. He was
Oh.
an inch too tall. A lot of people don't know that.
Yeah.
When he went to get measured officially, he stood on his head for 4.5 hours and compressed his spine
Is that right?
before he got measured so he could pass to get to be an astronaut. He wanted to be an astronaut really bad.
Yeah, you'll find him hiding his left hand.
Yes.
I'd heard that that's one of the digits you don't need that you could get
Yeah.
by with. But
He hid that from NASA for 2 years.
wow.
NASA didn't see that for 2 years. Now, how did they miss that
I
for
know
2
it.
years?
Yeah,
I
they
mean,
didn't say, well, let's see if you have all your toes and fingers.
Yeah,
Oh,
but
wait a
they
minute, you got one missing, there, Deke?
apparently they never did that for
Yeah.
2 years.
I'll put a picture of that on Facebook one day.
Yeah.
Lee,
Pardon me?
is that Lee right there?
That's Lee right there
Yeah,
in the back there.
Yeah, in the
And
back.
that's Joseph Adams, who's been involved there. The other 2 gentlemen, I think, have passed away, Karen told me there. Do you remember their names, Lee?
Uh,
2 guys with the goatees there, the beard and goatee.
oh, okay. I don't remember. This is Hendrick
Okay.
there, and the other guy with the
Shorts.
shorts on. I don't recognize him.
But just
Yeah.
this museum was an afterthought when this
Yes.
was created.
Yes.
People came
They,
in your
they
office.
started bringing stuff. They down at Miracle City Mall. They got a little shop down there, and people started bringing in souvenirs, stuff that they had collected through the years, and they started putting it on display, and that's how the museum got started.
And you kind of become an expert in
The
memorabilia. by handling
the
them.
second place when we moved into the old jewelry store, we got much bigger, and that's when Charlie Mars, who was our president at the time, asked me if I could be involved. I was still working, and I came down and was working, helping with the collections, and it was amazing the stuff that people brought in that they had collected through the years. Most of it was destined for the dump. It should have been thrown away after the programs ended. NASA's big thing was to haul everything to the dump and do away with it. And luckily, some of these people snagged some of the stuff, and we were able to keep a lot of it and put it on display here in the museum. We've got some really unique things in the museum here.
So true. Charlie Mars, our godfather of the museum. We talked about him yesterday. Go see our Stay Curious program where we talked a little bit about Spaceview Park and Charlie's book, Harvesting the Handprints.
Yeah.
I lost my train of thought there about Charlie there. We were.
But that job that he did getting those handprints, that was not an easy task.
No.
I mean, trying to run some of these guys down, he went all around the country trying to get to them.
He did. He went out.
And he took his plaster, his little frame plaster mold, and that's what he got the handprints in originally.
And Neil Armstrong was hard to get. And when they finally got Neil's, it was like a local story about him. And that is
he got him at an airport. He was in a waiting room in an airport where he cornered him.
Charlie's gumption is something else to get all these things. But over 35 Mercury, Apollo, and some shuttle astronauts we have out there at Spaceview Park, and some up
They
here in
went
our
out
museum.
to get Eileen Collins, who was the first woman commander of a shuttle. They went out to get her handprints, and she made her handprints. And then they had taken with them Sally Ride's bronze. And she looked at those and she said, "I don't like mine. I want to do it over again." So they smoothed out the clay so she could do hers over again.
Never heard that story.
Yeah,
there.
she wanted to do it over again.
We have her proudly in our women's gallery with Sally Ride, Eileen Collins. We're also going to have some of the handprints at our event Saturday for people to see.
Yeah.
Well, let's go be a fireman here and see. There's your patches. That's the shuttle era patches.
Yeah,
there.
those are one of many.
Well, yeah, one of many kinds there. But here's out of our own gallery. And tell us what we're looking at.
That is my original Apollo Rescue Team suit. That's the one that I wore when I was on Apollo 16 Rescue Team. And
launched 50 years ago Saturday,
yeah,
April 16th,
it doesn't even seem
1972.
possible that it was that long ago.
And there you've got Astronaut Rescue Team sign there in the back there, a terrorism poster from 1991.
Yeah.
We always love showing people.
In the case, well, you can't see
I
that.
got a close-up of the case there.
Okay, because there's a M113 in there.
Yeah,
that
we got
used.
that'll be the next shot there. There's a close-up of that mask, and also behind his escape suit.
Yeah. The problem with the hypergulls, they're very toxic. You cannot breathe them on your own. That's the reason you see the astronaut with a mask on. You're not allowed to be around that stuff whenever it's being vented or anything like that.
But you as firemen had to figure out how to put the fire out if they created one.
You cannot put a fire out when it's hypergulls.
And you have got some crazy stories about.
Yeah. The only thing you can do on a hypergall fire is shut off one of the sources.
Okay.
You shut off either the fuel or the oxidizer. That's the only way you can put it out. There is no way to put it out. Once it starts mixing together, it does not go out.
Tell the story you've told me about you were over there and working with stuff that was so loud that you could hear it over here in Titus.
when you mix these together, as they mix together in the open, we had a pit.
Yeah,
we actually floated into a pit. And once you mix it in the pit in the open air, it was combustion happened, and each combustion was like a mini explosion. A bunch of calls out here because of that.
It's an awesome video. And then you get away. And how far did it move the tank?
60,000-pound armored personnel carrier moved it over 4 inches from the blast.
Of the launch of the Saturn
I was
V
on the
rocket.
west side. 2 other rescue tanks were backed into the bunker. They were protected by the bunker. I was out on the side. Apollo 12 got hit by lightning. They had no cameras on the west side of the pad to catch that real well. So they wanted a lightning observer on the west side of the pad. So I volunteered to do that, knowing that I was going to have my 8mm movie camera out there to take movies of the liftoff. And that's what I did. And then the sand got to blowing so bad because we were so close to the launch that I had to close the hatch and wait until the sand quit blowing. Then I opened it up and took some more video.
Man, a quarter mile away from a Saturn V rocket blasting off to the moon. 50 years ago that was, Lee.
I asked the rescue leader when we got out there that morning, I said, "What happens if this thing blows up?" He said, "I hope your will's in order."
Is that what he said? That's reassuring.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, here's a few little memory lane pictures there, Lee. Tell us about that.
This is the back of the M113. You can see it down there. They were
number 2 there, Marty.
Yeah.
On the side of it.
You can see, those are back. We had ablative material on during Apollo. On the outside of it was like a stuff that was supposed to protect us from the blast if we were too close. The blast area for the Saturn V was 3.5 miles, And their saying was anything in that 3.5 miles would not survive if it blew up. So we knew that if it blew, we wouldn't have survived the blast.
And how many were on the astronaut rescue crew?
We had 6 guys on the rescue plus a rescue team leader. So
wow, 7 people.
yeah,
Very interesting. There's some of the memorabilia, some first day.
yeah, those are
there.
covers that they used out there.
I mean, just like you know, they honored everything on postal covers back today. It was
Yeah.
so popular. Today, people don't even mail anything
No,
hardly
hardly
anymore.
anything at all.
But so this is a good little history of things where they would,
Everything was very commemorative back
yeah,
then.
honor
Every
that.
launch that went off was docked up.
yeah, there's some patches and pictures.
Yeah,
there.
we had many patches through the years. We worked for contractors. People think we worked for NASA. We didn't work for NASA. We worked actually for contractors who actually were contracted by NASA to provide fire service support. The patch that you see up on the top of the photograph there, the one that says PAD,
Yes.
I designed that patch, and Ken Havicott, who is a guy who does a lot of souvenirs, he made that patch for me.
Oh, yeah. Hi, Ken. Great friend of our museum.
And when I had that patch made, originally I drew it up, and he gave me what they call a thread chart, which opens up. There were like 450 different colors of thread.
oh yeah.
And I had to take a line and draw to each one of those colors on there what color I wanted. And a couple days after I sent it back to him, he called me and he said, "We have a problem." And I said, "What's that?" And he said, "Most patches have 5 colors." And he said, "Anything above that, I have to charge more money for it." And I said, "Well, what's the problem?" He said, "Your patch has 13 colors." There were 13 colors on that patch. And so he charged me an extra 50 cents.
Oh really?
Yeah.
I can hear him talking. Hey, we have a problem here. We have a problem.
Yeah.
Yeah, we love Ken Havicott.
Yes.
He's going to be vending at our event this
Yeah,
Saturday. So.
he,
But there you see some of the vehicles that they used out there, and of course the American flag. Everyone's got pride in what they're doing. They're very, you know. And here's some black and whites. I pulled
yeah,
off
they
the
were
internet.
doing some astronaut rescue. There, you see, they're using an Apollo astronaut suit there,
Uh-huh.
and they're learning about how to disconnect everything. We learned that on the table there because it was easier to do it there than to try to go inside of the capsule, because the capsule was really small back then. Even Apollo, I mean, it was big, but it was small compared to what we have now. But they were learning how to do that. Apollo, there were 7 things we had to disconnect to get the astronauts out of the vehicle. Shuttle, we had 14 things that we had to do to get them out of there. So it was quite a more involved.
There's a class picture of sorts. Are you in that, Lee?
No, I'm not in that one, but
Okay.
this was on STS-1. They were doing training for STS-1, the first crew. And that was some of the guys on the rescue team that had volunteered.
Just to show you, stay curious watchers out there, that you know it takes a village really to
Yeah.
launch people to the moon and into space there.
Some of these guys, there's a guy in the back row there. He was an Army medic technician who was down there. They used to train with us.
Oh really?
And they were part of the rescue team if we had a accident, and they would be involved in it. There were 4 of them that went with us. Those are some early pictures of the fire guys.
Okay, and there's another little.
Yeah, there's some.
This Ken Havicott posted this, and that is the Japanese first woman in space, Morai, and she was given one of these postal covers or something. She was very interested.
Okay.
But I like the picture of the vehicle sitting there with just moments after
Landing.
shuttle landed.
Yeah,
there.
yeah.
And but you
You
know,
see the fire truck in the foreground there.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's what
Yeah.
I like that picture.
We had 3 trucks on landing, and we had the one that what they call the touchdown end, actually 2. As it went by, they went out on the runway and they went off to the side and followed it down. Then we had one at midfield. When it went by midfield, then the 3rd one came out. And then we had one at the far end that set up on the nose.
all those shuttle launches, all those Apollo, all, you know, what I'm trying to get at and spit out is, thank God you were never really needed.
Yeah.
All that training.
Yeah.
And does it surprise you that there wasn't a major?
5 times I was out there when the shuttle engines lit and then shut down.
Yeah.
And we went to the gate 3 times.
Pad
They sent
abort,
us-
Marty.
Yeah,
wants
they
me to
sent us-
remind everybody, a pad abort.
They
That
s-
had to have everybody on pins and
We
needles.
went up to the gate. They told us to go to the gate and stand by because we might be going up to get the astronauts out. And luckily we didn't have to do that, but we were ready to go up there if we'd needed. But at 5 different times I was out there when it orbiter, and that's a scary feeling.
Also, Lee, we're talking to Lee Starrick here. Spent 33 years at Kennedy Space Center working as astronaut rescue and fire crew. The times that that you weren't needed, of course. I mean, were there lessons learned all the time that you would go back and?
Yeah, well, we were firemen first. We were regular firemen like a city. I mean, we had duties that we had to do. We had a fire inspection department, and we did fire. We did a lot of what they call on-site supports. Anytime they were doing a fueling operation or any kind of a hazardous vehicle, you know, with the Saturn V or with the shuttle, we had a fire truck there with a crew. And so we could be there quickly if something happened. Anytime they were unloading hydrogen or liquid oxygen or hydrogen, we were there with a truck.
So did you go to like regular fire training seminars around the country?
Yeah.
Because there's always new equipment, always new learning to get involved in
We
that.
had a guy who was the original Cape Canaveral fire chief, Norris Gray. He came over to the NASA side in 1964 when NASA started, and he was what they call a NASA fire chief. And he was very innovative. He would always go out there and try to get us new stuff. Anything that came out that was new, he would call the people and say, we want to test that here. For instance, Nomex bunker gear. When Nomex bunker gear first came out, nobody was trying it yet. Excuse me. And he called the company Globe.
Tell people what Nomex.
It's a material that they made that was fire resistant, and it had a coating on it that made it fire resistant. They dipped it in something that made it fire resistant. But he would call the companies and say, hey, I'm a fire chief at NASA. I want to try that. And they would send him gear for us to try. And we actually did tests on a lot of it. And we'd write reports on it and send it back. And a lot of the stuff we had to innovate with. When we first tried to do rescue on Apollo, we used Scott air packs, the regular yellow bottle Scott air packs on your back. The problem was you could not get into the hatch of that with the air pack on your back.
Oh.
So they redesigned, and we went to bottles on our legs. And we had them where we could strap them on. We had 15 minutes of air in each bottle. So we still had our 30 minutes of air, but we could go inside of the orbiter with that on, inside of the Apollo, and we could go in there and we didn't have to worry about this bulky bottle on our back. Now, when we came time to do the shuttle, 7 people to rescue. We didn't have enough time. 30 minutes of air is not enough time to get everybody out of there. So we had to come up with another system. And they came up with what they call liquid air. We had an air pack that we wore on our back that was low profile, and it had a dewar in it that had liquid air in it. And that liquid air would go through a heat exchanger, and it would turn into a gas, and we would breathe that gas. And what was nice about that was we got air that we would breathe at 55 degrees. So you would keep your core temperature down so you could work longer and you could continue. And those were good for about 2 hours. We've had some people that actually had them on for over 2 hours. So we had more than enough time and more than enough air to make our rescue. Because anytime we went near the orbiter, we always were concerned about the hypergols being exposed.
Well, that is some new stuff. I'll stay curious. People out there haven't heard before. I'll bet there's a fireman or two out there that are watching. Marty, you got a comment, a question?
I have a question for Mark Easiak. How much interaction did you have with Triple T, if any?
With what?
With
Travis
the
Thompson, White Room.
The White Room closeout crew.
We didn't early on, but later on during Apollo, especially during Apollo, we did. We started interfacing with them a little better. In fact, I went up there one time with a video camera and videotaped as a crew was going on board for a countdown demonstration test. We were concerned about, they were still using their bottle or their tanks. They had the little bottles that they carried on their hand, like a little thermos thing that they carried. And they also had their bags for their helmets. And we wondered where all of that stuff was going to be up there. And that white room's not real big. When you get 7 astronauts in there, and which they didn't do all at once, but we were concerned about where these helmet bags went, where these air bottles went, and all that. And then they were just throwing them on the floor. So when they got, say, 5 astronauts inside the shuttle, and we had to go up there and make a rescue, then we'd had all this stuff we would have been falling over. So I took this videotape and we went to safety with it, and we said, hey, we've got to do something. So that's when they built the shelves in there, and they built the racks to put all this stuff so it would be out of our way. And we started interfacing better with some of the guys on the closeout crew that way. And one of the things that people don't realize, when we had the baskets up there, if they were right in the middle of loading a crew, we had 7 baskets up there that would hold 21 people, and that included the closeout crew if we had to take them down to the bottom of the pad with us. So that was set up for all of them, plus the rescue team, plus the astronauts. So we could take 21 people out of there and get them down to the bottom and put them in the bunker area.
Thank you, Mark Usiak, for that wonderful question there. I'll pass that on to Triple T. Travis Thompson does every Friday, usually, Tales from the White Room here. And,
okay.
And you probably haven't seen Travis in a long time. But
no, I have not.
well, he volunteers down here, and usually on weekends and Fridays, Saturdays and Fridays. Well, we're enjoying a conversation here with Lee Starrick, and probably the most fun things I hear him talk about, he was talking about earlier, we're going to take you into, this is where the astronauts would stay 5 days, you say? 5 days?
3 to 5 days, they figured it would take that long to dig them out.
But let's go into what is called the rubber room, and this is
now that's the slide tube that actually connected to the side of the launch umbilical tower, the LUT, and that's where you started the slide. You would go down in that, and that was where you would actually start your slide. And then when you came out on the right-hand side there, that black hole that you see, that came out in that tray.
Left-hand side there.
Yeah, the left-hand side over here, that tray right there. That room, that part right there was all lined with rubber, and that's why they called that the rubber room. And that's where you came out when you slid down from the tube. Now, as you slid up that rubber, that would act like brakes because it was dry rubber, and you would stop on that. The problem was, when they put water, they had a water spray up on top, and when the water spray would come down to the tunnel, we always ended up with a big puddle down at the bottom. So when you came down the tube and hit that puddle, as you progressively started sliding up farther and farther up the rubber wall there, because of it being wet, you slid all the way to the end. The first time I came down with the 3 guys with me, we went all the way to the wall. I mean, we hit the wall hard.
Didn't you tell me someone broke an ankle?
We had a guy who broke 7 bones in his foot. He's crippled today. He walks with a limp today because of it. They got him off the side of the slide there onto the floor. He had a fireman's boot on, and his foot swelled up so fast it ripped the side of the boot out.
Whoa.
Now, that's hard to do. I mean, that's pretty tough material made to fire boots. But he had, I think, 11 or 12 surgeries to get his foot back in shape. They were talking about amputating there one time. It was so busted up.
Wow.
But they ended up saving it.
Now, this is under pad 39A.
And B.
And B also.
And B. Yeah, they had it set up
Pictures
for both
here
pads.
A, though. Huh?
I don't know which one they are. I'd have to.
Okay, so they're both pads.
But they're both there.
They're
As
both
far as
there
I know, the rooms are still there.
Hmm.
But we had a blast door, the big blast door. There's a blast door. You can see the blast door. We closed that from the inside, and then you could
look at the big pins there.
Yeah.
On that.
They were concerned if the Saturn V blew up on the pad that you would get blast down through the tube, and so you had this blast room. The blast room was mounted on springs, and that was supposedly to absorb the shock. And then we closed the door, and then you had a thing that you would turn and lock the door. That is looking
behind you. Maybe is there's the shaft coming down.
Yeah, I think so. That's looking up the slide for the end of the rubber room there. And the inside, that cage inside where we had the food and water and we sat in these chairs. They were metal chairs. They had cushions on them, but that's where we would sit, and then supposedly you could sleep. They would lean back. They were like lounge chairs.
The cage was for animals?
Food. That had food and water in it.
I mean, why put it in a cage?
I don't have any idea, but that's what they did.
Okay.
But that's where the food and water was that we had to have that you know,
MRE type of food, I
yeah,
guess.
exactly. Old K rations or
Right.
C rations back in the 50s and 60s.
You didn't have MREs back then.
No, they don't think they did. I think
Yeah,
it was
K
all
ra-
K rations and C rations back then. That's the door going out the other side. We actually had 2 blast doors that went out the other side. Now, supposedly they had that tunnel right there that provided fresh air from the outside. It went all the way out to the perimeter road of the pad, and they had these giant fans that would blow air through there to keep the room pressurized, to keep antitoxic gases and vapors out of there.
You
Went
hoped.
down that room one time. There's about, I'm going to say half a mile. And about halfway down through there, we were walking along in there, and there was not a lot of lights in there. I didn't have a flashlight. I got in there about halfway down. I heard this bzzz, and I thought, oh man, little rattlesnakes were in there, some little pygmy rattlesnakes, and I could hear them buzzing.
Oh,
So
my
I
God.
said, I don't think we want to go any farther. So we turned around and came back.
And there's the last picture we have of the famed rubber room escape.
Yeah,
secure
blast room. That's the
room.
blast room door right there. Yeah, looking through the side there.
And Walter Scriptonis.
You can see the big wheel. That's the big wheel that we use to turn to lock the door.
Well, that's very interesting there. Well,
Yeah.
winding down.
I had
our
a guy call me a few years back. They wanted to know if that room was still there, and he didn't know how to get there because the tube that they used for the LUT was gone.
Oh.
And I said, yeah, I know how to get in there. You need a key. And I told him where to go. And a couple of days later, he called me and he said, you're not going to believe it. We went down there and it's still there. Everything's still there.
Well, I'd love to go in there for sure.
Yeah.
Let's do a Stay Curious from there.
They have a ECS room, they call. You have to go through that. There's a doorway there that takes you right in there.
Well, we wanted to say thank everyone for watching us today with Lee Starrick. Here we're going to look at a couple pictures of, thank you, Ophelia Sauterelle is in France, and Gary Gerald. Paul Yeager's watching. Robert Laws in Dundee, Scotland. Hi, Robert. Carlton Bailey, thank you, Carlton. He's a launch photographer out there. His cameras are a quarter mile away, but he's never stood a quarter mile away. Thank you, Carlton. Dave Stange is in Michigan, one of our regular viewers there. We've got Leilana Bays Manis. Hi, Leilana. And Larry Pushkar, he's up in Michigan watching us above the Detroit area.
There you
I
go.
think he is.
Good place.
Hi, Eileen Dix.
Hmm.
She's thank you for watching us. And Keith Sewell, Professor Sewell's out there, and Professor Sewell's also a communicator now at Kennedy Visitors Complex. Tell us about this picture?
Okay, that picture was STS-26. That was the first flight after the Challenger accident. That picture was taken by a remote camera that was 3/4 to a mile away, and when the shuttle cleared the steam cloud there and the sound hit that camera, it started taking pictures. Now, as you can see, the rescue guys are outside of the vehicle. They're not inside of the M113, and the problem with that was they were supposed to be inside at launch. On that particular vehicle, it was in September. It's hot here in September. That gear is hot. They were inside of the vehicle for about a half an hour, and the count got stopped. So they got outside of the vehicle. About 20 minutes later, the count started again, so they got back in the vehicle. They were back in the vehicle about 15 minutes, and the count stopped again. They got back out. They started the count again, and they forgot to call them. They never called them to tell them that the count had started again.
Really?
They're sitting there. The rescue leader's sitting on the top of the M113 there. One of the guys on the ground yelled up to him. He said, hey, they're moving the beanie cap. Well, the beanie cap is the vent on top of the external tank, and they moved that at about 2 minutes before liftoff. And he turned around and he said, did anybody hear them start the count? No, they never heard the call. So the next day, this picture went that afternoon everywhere. It was on the front page of the local paper the next day. I mean, everybody just loved it. NASA safety saw that photograph and said that photograph's gone. It never happened. And they locked it up for 5 years. They wouldn't let anybody have it for 5 years because they were in violation of the procedure. They called the rescue leader and said, we want a list of those names. Those guys are going to be terminated. And they went up and played the tapes, and they forgot to call them. They never called them to tell them that
Oh,
the count had
so-
started again. So they couldn't actually fire them for something that wasn't their
Right.
fault. So, but that's the history behind that.
Wow.
Another thing a lot of people don't realize, if you look on the photograph there, you'll see the cloud on the right-hand side's got a little brown tint to it.
Yes, sir.
That is an SRB. When the SRB residue mixes with water, it turns to sulfuric acid. And we did not know that. Nobody ever told us that. And on STS-3, I think it was, we had a southeast wind or northeast wind blew the cloud over the top of us. And it was raining sulfuric acid on us. And we had just taken our gear off. And everybody was, what the heck's going on? We were getting burned and didn't even have a clue. So somebody mentioned it to somebody, and it got back to safety, and they said, "Yeah, you get it. Don't get in that." So anytime
Yeah, don't
we
get
had
in that. Well, the wind's blowing
anytime-
it on us. Yeah.
anytime we had a cloud that came that way, we got in the M113s and we drove away from the area.
So
The bad part was a night launch. It was hard to see which way the clouds were going at night.
And after that, they issued car covers.
Yeah, they issued car covers
Marty
for
says they
everybody
issued
because
car
of that
covers
early
for
on.
everybody.
They sure did. Yeah, there was plastic covers they issued to anybody that had cars that were in the launch control area by the LCC.
Huh.
But,
Interesting. What kind of cards you have, Marty, to cover up? Remember?
Toyota.
A Toyota? Oh, right. Yeah, right. Well, that every picture tells 1,000 words. Man, that
Yeah.
is a heck of a didn't know anything about that lead.
Yeah.
And
When I got ready to put that picture, ended up on the cover of the book. They had just started releasing it. They're back in service again.
yeah,
And
that's the book he's talking about there, where he
Yeah,
wrote
it's on
a
the
little
front
bit
cover.
about the history of the
30 years, of
It's called the
first 30
Kennedy
years.
Space Center Fire Department, the first 30 years. See if you can
Yeah.
find that on your Amazon Smile account. That helps our American Space Museum. Well, we enjoyed talking with you. There's all the Saturn V rocket launches I thought I'd throw up there.
Yeah.
Every one of them a success, from Apollo 4 to Skylab 1, never a failure. Just, you saw a few of them yourself.
I did not see 500F, which was the first one. I missed
Uh,
that one. I was in the Air Force still.
The
all the
500F
rest
was
of-
just the demo.
Yeah,
They
yeah.
never launched that. That was
Well, the
beauty
one, the first launch that
Yeah,
they did.
yeah,
Apollo, some of them call it Apollo 4, some of them
Yeah.
call it the 500F. I've
So,
heard numbers, both numbers.
So everyone's saying this SLS is going to be the most powerful rocket launched.
Supposed to be bigger.
Marty's biting his teeth over there. How about you?
Yeah. I think it's going to
It's not
be.
comparing apples to apples.
No, it's a whole different system. It's not the same.
Why were
A lot of people don't realize about the Saturn V. What was kind of unique about the Saturn V, 7.5 million pounds of thrust. When they fired it, it didn't launch right then. They held it down till it built up that 7.5 million pounds of thrust.
couple 3 or 5 seconds?
About 6 seconds
Okay.
on average.
Mhm.
Some of them a little shorter, some of them a little more. But once they got the thrust built up, then they released it. There was big hooks that held it down. And then they released it. It went up. As soon as the engine bells cleared zero level, they walked it sideways 5 feet. And then it continued to go on up.
Wow.
Now, when I was taking my home movies of it, and it takes about 30 seconds for it to clear the tower, at that close of a range, that was an eternity. I didn't think that thing was ever going to go because it was so slow when it first started, and then it did the sideways walking, and then it started on up again. And I kept saying, go faster, because I knew if there was a problem, I wasn't going to survive.
Yeah. Holy
But
cow.
It wasn't noisy. People say, well, how noisy is it? Well, all that water dumping on everything, it's blocked the sound pretty good.
Mhm.
But once it cleared the tower and got up above and went off to the side, then you started getting the noise. You got the reverberation through the air. You could actually feel your clothes move. Even 3 miles away, you could feel that.
Wow. And what Marty points out is this is a liquid fuel rocket that has
Yeah.
7.5 million pounds of thrust, and Artemis has got 2 pop bottle rockets on the side of it
Yeah,
that are going to provide most of its thrust.
yeah.
Still, I mean, it's an amazing accomplishment. We're not
Oh, yeah.
diminishing it,
No.
and we can't wait to see it, can
Yeah,
we?
well, I'm
Launch here,
looking forward to it.
in there. So, well, we have had a wonderful conversation with Lee Starrick, and we are grateful for the Hyatt Place Hotel for sponsoring Stay Curious here, and hope that you can all come this weekend and see our event there. But Lee, thank you so much
Okay,
for
you're
a
quite
great
welcome.
conversation.
Sorry it took so long.
Is there something? I'm so glad that you're back to health, because
Yeah.
you had us all worried there for a while, and
I've had
I
some
know you've had
incidents.
some. You were just as worried. I know a band that has stood in the 3 mile blast zone. That they say if a Saturn V rocket blows up, you're dead. Make sure you have your will. But here you are, man, to talk about the story, and we hope all of you enjoyed that out there with our Stay Curious people on Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, and Spotify. And anything I didn't ask you, Lee, that you'd like to share about our wonderful museum or
No,
your
we're
wonderful
good.
career?
Everybody needs to come down. You need to see the Apollo monuments. You need to see all of the monuments. You got Mercury, Gemini, and Apollo, and Shuttle, and they're unbelievable. And then when you get through doing that, come to the museum. We got
Yes.
some really neat stuff here.
One of a kind stuff here.
Many
and,
one of a kind.
and
things
you're
here.
one of the people that helped collect all this in the early
Yeah.
days, Lee. Thank you for all you've done
There's
for
a
the
lot
American
of things
Space
here.
Museum. I am privileged just to be among all of you warm friends that have lived this, that have put this together. Some of the gentlemen we mentioned, like Charlie Mars and Murphy and Jack and so
Well, I don't know if
forth.
anybody tells you or not, Mark, but we appreciate your help and all the stuff you've done for us.
Well, thank you.
You've been a good guy for us. We appreciate anybody that people get very enthused about the space program, and you're one of them. And it's good to see that still. There's a lot of people don't realize that there's so much support still for the space program. Everybody loves the space program.
Well, I'm blessed, like I said, to be
Yeah.
part of this museum and living the dream for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, when an astronaut comes in and calls me by my first name, it's like,
Yeah.
when in the heck did that happen to
Yeah.
me?
Exactly. Yeah.
But it's a beautiful place to live, Brevard County, the delivery room of America's space program, and here's one of the orderlies or one of the technicians that was part of all this thing. So thank you, Lee, for all you
Okay.
do. Marty, we're going to have a program tomorrow from our Hyatt Place studios. We're going to pack up our equipment tomorrow morning and go over there and do a program from over there to kick things off. So thank you for all that you do, Marty. We'll have a big day tomorrow. Thank you, Lee Starrick, for being here.
Okay.
And I'm Mark Marquette, and we will see you tomorrow from Hyatt Place, kicking off our big shuttle event. We'll see you from there tomorrow to bridge the space between us.